I don't know how it could get any worse for the Los Angeles Clippers. It's not that they've been little brother to the Los Angeles Lakers ever since moving to LA in 1984. It's not that they've only had one conference finals appearance during their entire franchise history, or that they're the oldest franchise in North American professional sports that has never played for a championship. It's the fact that they decided to send Chris Paul home at 2:40 in the morning when the Clippers are in the middle of a 5 game road trip. They completely disrespected a franchise legend and a player who just announced that he will be retiring at the end of the season and would have been the first Clipper in franchise history to have his jersey retired. In this video, we'll break down how we got here, what led to this nasty breakup, and what's next for both sides. At the time of this recording, the Los Angeles Clippers are at 6-18. They have lost 16 of their past 19 games, including a recent loss to the Memphis Grizzlies, who were without Ja Morant, in which they blew a 16-point lead. They lost to the Dallas Mavericks, who were without several key players in their rotation. And just last Saturday, they blew an 18-point lead to the Minnesota Timberwolves. This wasn't supposed to be how the Clippers season was supposed to go. They brought in veterans to bolster their perimeter defense, as well as depth in the front lines for one last shot at a title, while Chris Paul would embark on his farewell tour, as he just announced that this was going to be his final season in the NBA. However, injuries and just plain bad basketball have derailed a season where many thought that the Clippers could contend for a title. They brought in Bradley Beal, who was supposed to replace Norman Powell, but this move ended up to be a terrible one, as Bradley Beal was terrible in limited action and also suffered a season-ending hip injury, as he hasn't suited up since December. Brook Lopez is currently out of the rotation, and Kawhi, per usual, has missed a ton of time, already sitting out 10 games due to foot and ankle injuries. Last week, the Clippers began a 5 game road trip and were coming off an embarrassing loss to the Miami Heat. They had some airplane problems that delayed their departure from South Beach by 6 hours before leaving to their next venue in Atlanta. This is where everything changed, and simultaneously while flying to Atlanta, President of Basketball Operations Lawrence Frank also flew over to join them. Just hours after getting into his hotel room, Lawrence Frank met with CP3 and informed him that the future Hall of Famer was going to be sent home and would no longer be part of the Clippers roster. Due to the second apron, this move isn't official until the 15th of December at the very earliest, as the Clippers will try to trade Chris Paul to a team that will hopefully embrace him in the final months of his NBA career. So, how did we get here? There are two damning reports, one from Shams Charania and another from Chris Haynes, that provided us with some interesting details on the split. Let's start off with Shams, who reported that Chris Paul and Ty Lue didn't get along to the point where the two haven't been speaking for several weeks. Now let's jump to Chris Haynes' reporting. Sources say that after weeks of silence during this growing rift, Chris Paul attempted to arrange a meeting with his head coach to hash it all out, but instead, Ty Lue refused. Additional reports say that there were several disagreements on leadership style as the Clippers began to unravel. Paul became vocal on holding players, coaches, and management accountable, and this seemed to rub them the wrong way. Just days before Chris Paul's eventual release from the Clippers, he posted the definition of leeway on his Instagram story. The definition of leeway is freedom, ability to maneuver, allowing some flexibility. And this was in reference to a discussion he had with assistant coach Jeff Van Gundy. In a recent home loss to the Dallas Mavericks, CP3 noticed that Kawhi was struggling to defend Klay Thompson. Coming into the game, Kawhi Leonard was on a minutes restriction from his latest injury, and he was sitting on the bench for quite some time. When he got back onto the court, Chris noticed that he wasn't quite fully warmed up and couldn't really keep up with Klay Thompson. During the timeout, CP3 suggested that Kawhi maybe switch off of Klay, and that happened on the very next defensive possession. Now, after the game, Jeff Van Gundy pulled Chris aside and asked him point blank, "Did you change the defensive assignment?" Chris replied, "No, I only suggested it, that someone else maybe guards Klay since Kawhi hasn't warmed up." Jeff Van Gundy replies, You might have had that leeway in other places to change the defensive coverages, but you don't have that leeway here. According to Chris Haynes, this was one of many minor verbal dust-ups between Chris Paul and Jeff Van Gundy, and when you factor in the lack of professionalism from Ty Lue to even sit down and talk things out in a simple meeting, the Clippers locker room seemed to be a toxic environment, leaving the front office without much of a choice to move on from Chris Paul. If I'm Lawrence Frank, I try everything in my power to not let this news get out, as we already know that the Clippers don't need another PR nightmare because they already have a major offseason scandal coming into the season with the Aspiration scandal involving Kawhi Leonard and circumventing the salary cap. It's been a rough few months for the Clippers, but this isn't the first time that they did this to a veteran. Back in 2017, another Clippers legend, Blake Griffin, was a free agent and had the power to go anywhere in the league, but he decided to return to the Clippers, stating that he wanted to build a legacy as the team's greatest player. Just 7 months later, after signing a 5-year, $171 million deal, the Clippers shipped him off to Detroit. Chris Paul wanted to finish his career as a Clipper, but just 5 months after coming home, the Clippers released him in the middle of the night. But there's a pattern much deeper with this Clippers front office. They've done this to Eric Bledsoe, Russell Westbrook, PJ Tucker. Anytime a vet tries to voice their opinion, they get humiliated and later casted off to a lottery team in efforts to silence them. The Clippers have a history of being poorly managed, but despite the guy who ran Microsoft at this peak taking over as Clippers owner, it still isn't enough as the franchise continues to be muddled in controversy while putting a bad product on the court. So what's next for Chris Paul? Well, for starters, he could stay in LA. He could join the Los Angeles Lakers, as this is an opportunity for him to stay at home with his family, as this was the point why he even joined the Clippers in his last season in the NBA. He has a great relationship with LeBron James. They've been longtime friends for almost 2 decades at this point. And he also has a pretty good relationship with Lakers head coach JJ Redick, as the two were teammates during Chris Paul's first stint with the Clippers. But this move would have to wait until January due to roster limitations on the Lakers' part. The next option could be joining the Oklahoma City Thunder. Why not join the best team in the NBA? The Thunder have been dominant this season. They've only lost 1 game all year long at the time of this recording. Chris Paul has already played in OKC, as he was the mentor to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the year where they just traded Russell Westbrook and Paul George, and many thought that this would be a rebuilding year. Instead, Chris leads the OKC Thunder into the playoffs, where they came within a game of the second round in the 2020 bubble. And like I said earlier, OKC has been dominating this year, so this could give Chris a chance to go out on top and win a ring, which is the only thing missing in his decorated career. But unfortunately for Chris, the Thunder simply just don't have any room on their roster for him. The 15-man roster is full, and I don't see an avenue where Sam Presti releases a guy that he could potentially use for a playoff run just for sentimental purposes and bring in Chris Paul. Now, another option for Chris could be returning to the Houston Rockets, because the Rockets are another team that's contending for a title, and they certainly have an opening at the point guard position due to the offseason injury of Fred VanVleet, who tore his ACL. I think the Rockets have been doing a good job in having many players try to run the offense, whether it's Amen Thompson or it's Shepherd, but they could certainly use an orchestrator of the offense. And this could be the best opportunity for Chris, as this could be the place where he has the best chance for playing time, not just be a guy at the end of the roster, just being essentially another assistant coach. He can still play for a competitive team where he does have some unfinished business, where he was part of that 2018 team that could have gone to the NBA Finals, defeating the Golden State Warriors, but we all know about that hamstring injury. So we talked about what's next for Chris Paul. Well, what's next for the Clippers? Lawrence Frank made it very clear in his statement to the media that Chris Paul's release wasn't to scapegoat the Clippers' recent struggles, which I understand is obvious, but let's remember that the Clippers are still paying a heavy price for Kawhi's demands. Back in 2019, Kawhi was the belle of the ball in free agency. He just won a championship with the Toronto Raptors, was named Finals MVP for the second time in his career, and there were three teams in the running for the two-way superstar. The Toronto Raptors, who were looking to run it back, the Los Angeles Lakers, who were looking to build a super team, pairing him with LeBron James and the recently acquired Anthony Davis, and of course you had the Los Angeles Clippers. Surprisingly, throughout the 2019 season, the Clippers were linked to Kawhi Leonard, but there was thought that the Lakers had the better deal, and they gave Kawhi the best chance to win because they had a stacked roster. In the 11th hour, Kawhi's leadership tells the Clippers front office to go get Paul George, who they handpicked to be Kawhi's running mate. Within hours, the blockbuster move was made, and the Clippers had two of the NBA's best wing players, and they were poised to bring the franchise's first ever title. By selling out to acquire Kawhi, the Clippers gave up a boatload of draft picks and a future MVP. We won't discuss the Clippers' shortcomings since, but OKC has gone on to win a title despite hitting the reset button, and the Clippers only have one Western Conference Finals appearance in return. The funniest thing of all is that the Clippers don't even own their first round draft pick next year. It's actually owned by OKC, which means the team that just won the NBA championship while only losing one game so far this season has a chance to add another young stud to already one of the most talented rosters in the association. I truly hope that Chris Paul finds a new home and gets the farewell tour that he deserves, because he deserves so much credit for changing the culture for the Los Angeles Clippers, especially during his first stint. Before he got there, the Clippers were a laughingstock. They were led by a racist owner, but when Chris Paul got there, they at least became respectable. This year, knowing that it was supposed to be his last, Chris Paul wanted to return to the team where he spent the years of his prime in what was supposed to be a farewell season, in hopes that he would be the first player in Clippers franchise history to have his jersey retired and hung up in the rafters. But instead, the Clippers pulled the rug out from underneath him in the middle of the night. I'm somebody that believes in karma, and I truly believe that the Clippers' past mistakes will come back to haunt them. With their draft picks going to OKC, and if the NBA's investigation exposes the Clippers scam to circumvent the salary cap, Adam Silver will have no choice but to enforce the harshest penalties in NBA history that could cripple the Clippers for the next decade as they fade into irrelevance. At the end of the day, no matter what the Clippers try to do to take over Los Angeles, LA will always be a Lakers town.